This is Harrison's Creek, and this can be a very bloody battle. I think the secret to this battle is don't get bogged down on the Union right. Instead, focus on the left. You get, after about 40 in-game minutes, the Allied troops come in, and you want the Allied troops to come in and help you get a breakthrough in the line on the Confederate right, and that's all to the good. One thing that is interesting, I give my best unit a bunch of lever action Spencers. This turns out to be pretty underwhelming. I thought these weapons would be great. They have a short range, they have a rapid fire, and they just don't hit hard enough for me. I think the 1863s, I like the way they hit, I like the way they do a lot of damage, I like their range. So I end up swapping them out. So I spent a lot of time gathering these weapons up so I could equip a unit of 2,500 men, and then I was disappointed in them. So that's not the first time that happened. A lot of the weapons that seem like they should be really awesome are disappointing on the battlefield. So you have to find out, and also you have to find out what weapons you like that match your style of play. So anyway, I'm deploying my army, and the units on the right side are largely going to sit and do very little for most of the battle. The entire focus is to punch a hole to the far south of the map. So, and I think this my 20-pound parrots are going to at least contribute by taking some shots, and most of that good infantry over there is just going to quietly do nothing while I bring the army up. And if you hit the entrenched enemy unit on the far right in that very long entrenchment, front and rear, then he's going to break very quickly. And that's what I want to do. I want to hit him simultaneously front and rear, and stay away from the guys near the victory location. They can do a lot of damage, so I want to stay away from those guys. Notice how I'm hugging the far left, and I'm going to punch through at a single point, and it actually falls very quickly. And then run everybody up to the top of the hill, take some time to rest and recover, roll the artillery up, and then after that, really the battle's pretty simple. I take what I consider to be a lot of losses in this battle. I've done it and taken a lot fewer casualties, and you can keep your casualties down to what I consider a very, very small number for this battle. Two things. First, I use the Allied troops aggressively. Sometimes I don't. I'm not throwing them away. I'm not trying to get them killed, but I'm not trying to preserve them either. I'm fighting aggressively with them and letting them take a lot of casualties, more so than usual. And the other thing is, at the very end of this battle, the battle's won, and all of the enemy units are routing and they're flashing white, I move in close to get a lot of free kills. Well, what happens is the enemy mob starts to drift around, and they drift fast into my units. And instead of them surrendering instantly, which is what would happen in real life, they fight to the death. And I take a lot of casualties at the very end. Every casualty I take in the end is completely foolish and pointless and unimmersive. That's not what would happen. The defeated enemy force would either flee the battlefield, well, that's what they would do. They'd flee the battlefield, or they'd surrender. Yeah, that needs to be fixed. Enemy units that are routing should not route into healthy units that are firing into them, and the developers have not solved the problem of fixing how units retreat and have them retreat in a realistic way, and have them behave in a realistic way when the units have been had their morale so highly damaged that the units barely functional. And units that are in a state of routing should not behave the way they do in this game. So actually, I'm watching this video and I'm not doing what I usually do. Usually I just wait patiently for my allied troops to come in, and I don't start the attack until my allied units get to the rear of the fortification, which doesn't take very long. I'm starting the attack early. Okay, that is probably going to cost me a lot of casualties, unnecessary casualties. What I'm doing here is you can turn units to the perpendicular to the thing you want to attack and then just have them slide to the left. That's what they'll do. And once you slide far enough behind that fortification, you'll be getting flank and rear shots. But yeah, I started the attack way too soon. So I fought this battle a bunch of times now, and usually I get the timing a lot better. These allied troops to the rear should blast through the cav and then dismount, and then dismounted cav should fire into the back of the entrenched unit. And there's plenty to do this. There's the force is certainly big enough to be able to pull that off, get into the rear, strike that fortification from the rear, and at that time, and only at that time, does the infantry attack. So I'm taking unnecessary losses here. Probably overconfidence is my guess, that I think my units are so good that they can pull this off, and but clearly taking unnecessary casualties. This cav needs another 5 to 10 minutes in game before I should start the attack. So yeah. Now, I mean, you look at this, I've already collapsed the enemy unit is beaten, and now the cav meets the infantry, the allied troops meet the infantry, but this would have cost me fewer casualties if I'd waited, what, 5 minutes in game? 5 to 10 minutes in game. 5 minutes in game, maybe 10 at the most. Because look, they're right now where they need to be, and if I started the attack right now, instead of when I did, this would go so much better because these guys could deliver fire into the rear of the fortification. So learn from my mistake, wait until those troops come in and get to the rear of the fortification, then start the attack. So yeah, and stay away from the guys that are just slightly north, because they have very nice range, and if you get close to them, boy, they'll put a volley into you. There's a nice artillery unit over there, so you need to stay away from those guys. But now my entire army is on top of the hill. The guys who've taken losses, the guys who are tired, can now... normally I give the tired units a chance to recover, but it's a simple matter of now get your army into position and begin the attack. Driving the people completely out of these woods is fairly straightforward, but you need to get an infantry group all the way, and you can see on the map now, all the way to the far left of the map as you can see it now, and then begin to attack what is going to be the new far right of the enemy position. And notice I haven't moved the First Corps troops that are just sitting quietly in the valley on the other side of the swamps. Those guys don't need to move. They can just sit there quietly. It is possible to attack and attack the far left of the enemy position and break it, but that is a lot, that's really more expensive, I think, than attacking the far right of the enemy position where I broke through here. This can be, well, your allied troops can absorb almost all of the casualties. You're going to take some losses, but the allied troops can really absorb almost all the casualties, and your core army can take what I think is very, very little damage, get on top of the hill in excellent condition. Then you move your artillery up and deploy it, and then then it's off to the races. And it's just advance the infantry, move up the artillery, and blast them. And it's pretty straightforward. Pay attention to the end, the frustrating part where the enemy retreats into me and gets my units into melee. That's irritating. I thought about replaying the battle. I was so angry and, raging at that point, and then I decided not to. I would just take it as is. So hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you next battle.